Welcome to Invest Well, Be Well, a podcast for wiser investing and stronger living. I'm Rusty Vanneman, longtime investment professional, and I'm joined each week by my co-host, Robin Murray.
Thanks, Rusty. I'm a storyteller and journalist, and I am so excited to explore the ideas, insights, and people shaping the intersection of performance and purpose.
This podcast is for thoughtful investors and driven professionals who want to grow in their portfolios and in their personal lives.
We'll talk long-term investing, behavioral finance, personal development, and what it takes to live and work with intention.
So let's get started. Let's invest well and be well together.
This podcast is brought to you by Maine Management LLC. Since 2002, Maine has been recognized as an ETF strategist that combines an institutional process with the personalized service of a boutique firm. Our guest today is Wes Gray. He's the CEO and co-CIO of Alpha Architect. And yeah, pretty great interview. I mean, he was good. I liked it.
He definitely brought the energy.
Yeah.
And again, Alpha Architect, it's a really innovative firm. And again, they are dedicated to delivering highly differentiated, evidence-based investment strategies at low cost. But Wes has a really unique background. He served in the U.S. Marine Corp. He was a captain. And then he earned his PhD in finance at the University of Chicago. So that's pretty cool. And when he was there, he studied under numerous Nobel Prize winners. So he brings together military discipline, academic rigor, entrepreneurial spirit, and it's all channeled into building a firm that kind of stands out for transparency and commitment to investor education. But he's not just an investor. He's also a performance-driven individual, an avid hiker. And he's really just a case study in resilience and discipline and pushing limits, whether it's markets, mountains, or marathons. So we talked about a lot of cool things. Before I mentioned a few things that stood out for me, what stood out for you?
Yeah, well, just as you said, he's got an interesting background. I thought what he said about discipline being a muscle, like something that you kind of have to keep exercising to keep it working for you, I thought was just an interesting way to look at it and totally true. And yeah, when he talked about transparency and how if you don't have transparency, your strategy doesn't really matter because your client's not going to be invested in it. So pretty cool. Plus he talked about sleep, which I thought that you should listen to.
I know when everybody says that, it's like,
yes,
oh gosh, I should have slept more last night. Mm-hmm. I loved his energy. I mentioned that. And again, to me, key attributes for good investment managers is discipline and being different. And he hits on those over and over, which I think was great. I also loved sharing some cowboy stories with him.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, let's hear it. Well, Wes, welcome to the show. Welcome to Invest Well, Be Well.
Yeah, honored to be here.
Great to have you.
Well, Wes, a tradition on our podcast. It's not really a hazing ritual, but it's an important tradition for us. And that is we like to break the ice by asking for your ideal walk-up song for this interview. What's going to get us all into the zone?
Well, I don't know if it'll get you in the zone for geeky finance talk, but my walk-up song, just because my dad used to call me Country Boy when I was a kid, is Country Boy Can't Survive by Hank Williams Jr., which is a total redneck song that's really old, but it's just all about grit, determination, individual effort, surviving. That's kind of my song.
Nice. It works for Invest Well, Be Well. And Robin and I love to show off our diversified playlist, which of course we put on Spotify. So that'll
diversify.
Right on.
You have some Taylor Swift probably, and then some Hank Williams Jr. You'll be good.
There you go. That's right.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Wes, I want to ask about you and your background. So for those who are less familiar with you, an Alpha Architect, can you share a little bit about you and what led you to build a firm that really does things differently?
Yeah. So I guess the summary is I never wanted to have a real job, and I like adventuring and doing fun, adventurous stuff. So, grew up on a cattle ranch, ended up going to Wharton undergrad, went into the Marines, got out, finished my PhD. I was a professor, and then I got cold called by a billionaire, and that's what launched our firm, 2010, Alpha Architect. And then, at the time, we were working with the billionaire. They hate taxes. We learned about the ETFs. ETFs, as you know, are very tax efficient. We started ETF business. And then, we grew that. And then, around 2019, that was all Alpha Architect centric. We created another firm called ETF Architect because, there's a lot of other people that also wanted to launch ETFs, And so here we are now with 22 or $23 billion or something crazy in these two business entities, Alpha Architect and ETF Architect. And, they're basically all about just education, being transparent, being honest, and just trying to deliver, affordable, good services to the financial service industry.
So Wes, where was the cattle ranch at?
It was in, it's called Adams Creek Ranch, which is now called Frost Creek Ranch because the Coors family bought it. But it's near Eagle, Colorado, in right around Vail, Beaver Creek area in Colorado. So like right there in the Rocky Mountains, down Brush Creek.
Well, I spent a little time as a ranch hand myself in the sand hills of Nebraska, but I'm guessing you're probably a better cowboy than I am.
I probably at the time, but when I was a kid, because we do like cattle drives and everything, and I had this old horse that's called Fatso. He would literally like go under trees to scrape me off his back because I was like a little kid. And so I actually am not a cowboy. I like four-wheelers. I like machines. I don't like the old school riding horses thing because it's just, I have PTSD from my childhood life of doing that and just getting beat up by horses. So I like the idea, but I'm more of a drive a four-wheeler around and get it done guy.
Well, one more point on that. When I did cattle roundups, which are always awesome, everybody rode horses and they put me in the pickup truck.
Yeah. So you're probably the opposite then. You would rather be on the horse, not on the machines. I got hazed on the horse, so I prefer the machines now.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, say you just talked about your Marine Corp experience, and so no doubt that's a foundation of your discipline. Tell us how that has shaped both your life and your investing philosophy.
Yeah. So, as you know, the Marines, it's just all about getting the job done under chaos and uncertainty and just dealing with stressors, but with a smile on your face. And obviously in the Marines and when you're in that situation, it's actually dangerous and you could die. So it's like a serious thing. And so I don't mean to like make an analogy to the financial markets exactly, but obviously like in financial markets, there's always chaos. People are always stressed out. There's always something wrong going on. And it's the same thing. You just got to keep a cool head, not sweat it and just keep operating. So I feel like the Marine Corps is very good for just, allowing creating operators who can operate under duress without like freaking out. And that just happens to be a very useful skill, I think, in financial markets as well.
That's pretty cool. So what do you believe are the core principles of wise investing? Considering our title here, Invest Well, Be Well.
I'm going to pull out inner Jack Bogle here because he seems to be like the best for this kind of thing. But, wise investing is just, first off, understand what are you trying to achieve? And then once you have a goal and objective, like it's kind of boring, but how do we achieve that with like the lowest fees, the most liquidity, the least complexity, and the best tax structure? It's just that simple, right? So have an objective. What do you want to actually achieve? That's something people always seem to forget. And then once you have that in place, just figure out how to do it very efficiently. I'd say that's wise investing. And then just be disciplined about not pivoting off the program.
Yeah.
So Alpha Architect emphasizes a phrase called affordable alpha. Cool phrase. What does that mean in practice for investors?
Yeah. So going back when we were like starting this business up, you look at the landscape, you're like, all right, well, I'm not going to out Vanguard because they have trillions of dollars and, that's just impossible. So where is the opportunity? Well, there's a lot of these overpriced, totally non-transparent, like boutique-y weirdo strategies, things that aren't what Vanguard can't do. And so we thought, you know what? Who's going to be the Vanguard of like weird boutique-y stuff? We can do that. Like we're efficient, we're operators, we can be transparent. We can figure out how to do this cheaper, better, and faster than everyone else. So that's what we did. So affordable alpha is this idea, alpha is kind of a nebulous term. I'll just phrase it as like weird boutique things that are not what you would buy from Vanguard. And then how do we make that as cheap as humanly possible, but still be a profitable going concern? Like obviously we can't charge 3 bips because we don't have $1 trillion, but maybe we could charge 20 or 30 bips, but do that with only a couple $100 million and it's still a win-win. So that's what it's all about, just delivering weird stuff affordably.
And why would you say that transparency is such an important value for you when you're talking about investment strategy design?
So, there's a lot of reasons for that, but the biggest one is behavioral. Like most investing, it doesn't even matter what the actual strategy is. It's like if the client doesn't actually understand it or know what's going on, the minute it quote unquote doesn't work, they're gone. And that's not a win for anybody, right? It's not a win for the asset manager. It's not a win for the client. It's just no bueno. Transparency is great because if we can be transparent and help the actual end client understand what the heck is going on, it just makes them more resilient. Because if it's quote unquote not working, they'll be like, oh, well, I know that it doesn't work sometimes because of X, Y, Z, right? So that's reason number one. The second reason is in order for us to maintain affordability, we have to minimize distribution and marketing cost, right? And so one way you can do that is you just give out and spread as much love and education and information out there as humanly possible. Just be insanely transparent with how you do things and what you do. With the idea is that in the long game, if you build a brand around transparency and honesty and integrity, we don't have to have armies of salespeople, to jam XYZ product down your throat. You just know that if you're working with Alpha Architect, we're going to, whatever we're delivering is probably going to be interesting to at least explore because, we've built up this nice, evidence, transparent, high integrity culture and brand with the investment community.
All right. So can you also explain why you focus on systematic, evidence-based approaches rather than discretionary decisions?
Yep. So I always caveat this with there's no right answer. If you're a discretionary, great. There's great ones out there. But for me personally, and just in my experiences, because I used to be a stock picker for a long time, I just quickly determined that systems are great at disciplining action and minimizing behavioral errors, right? So that's why the last stock was, it was some liquidation stub that it had a whole bunch of, this is probably 10, 15 years ago. And I was like, all right, actually Jack, as you know, my biz partner, I was like, Jack, this is the last stock pick I'm ever going to do. And I put 20% of my money. It was some guaranteed liquidation trade. And of course, the whole thing blew up and I lost 90%. And then I have not touched a single stock or a discretionary really choice since then. And I've been so happy about it. It just, it maintains discipline. It really helps with transparency because I can tell you, here's my process and why. And you don't have to think well, how's Wes feeling today? Did he drink his coffee? Maybe he's crazy. He wants to go buy crypto. And the next day he forgot his copy. He's going to go buy, I don't know, utility stocks. It's just, you just know the process, you know what you're getting. And I feel that just builds a lot of confidence and faith in whatever you're trying to deliver to people.
Hey, on that big loss, though, at least you got to harvest a nice tax credit to offset all your winning trades.
That's actually good. I did carry forward that capital loss for a long time. I'm finally past it, but it was probably on my books for 6-7 years. It was no bueno.
So I have another cool phrase I want to ask about. So you're written about being robust to chaos. What does that mean in terms of portfolio construction and financial resilience?
I just talk about my particular situation, and it's like a lot of asset managers. My problem is all my money is basically tied to the market, right? Because in the asset management business, all our stuff is buried in beta. And so when I'm thinking about my own portfolio and what's going on out there, I just got to think okay, great. Equity risk is awesome, but there's so many things that can blow that up. And I don't want just one tool to protect that equity. So for example, 60-40, that doesn't make any sense because it's not robust to chaos, right? The 60% for stocks is going to be great if things are working. And then the 40% in bonds is going to be great if and only if there's an expectation of deflation. But what if there's inflation? There's so many other things you should do. So the idea is you should just think through what are not the one or two things that could go wrong, but the 20 things that could go wrong. And then obviously just make sure you have a portfolio that presumably would work in some of these instances so you're not accidentally fragile. That's what that means.
This episode of Invest Well, Be Well is brought to you by Main Management LLC, a pioneer in actively managed ETFs since 2002. Main management starts with a clear fiduciary focus, delivering the transparency and personal attention you'd expect from a boutique firm. They provide financial advisors with solutions, not products. Main also believes investors should keep more of what they earn, emphasizing net of fee after-tax performance to help clients retain more of their returns. I've known Main management for years. I've met thousands of managers over the course of my career, and one quality I really value: they invest alongside their clients. They eat their own cooking. Over 10% of the assets they manage are their own partner assets, and more than half of the firm are partners themselves. That says a lot. To learn more about Main strategies, including buy-right hedged equity, U.S. sector rotation, thematic innovation, and all asset models, please visit their website at mainmgt.com.
So you've talked about being different, and being different can be really hard in the investment world. So how do you coach investors and yourself to stay disciplined when strategies are underperforming in the short run?
Yep. So that goes back to the mission of the firm, which has been the same since we started, to empower investors through education, right? The bottom line is the only way you're going to stick through something is if you understand that process and how it works. Because as you guys all know, like, there is no such thing as a strategy that goes up 10% every year and always works and always beats the market, right? And there's also a whole part of our business where there's always going to be a slick salesperson that will say, oh, Wes is an idiot, his fund's down, you should go buy my fund, which is doing awesome this year, right? So the problem is you're always getting attacked with people that are trying to feed you information about why their stuff is better or worse than the next guy's. And people are very prone to like maneuvering from that. But if people are educated and understand the process, totally get it, they've got endowment effect on how it works and why it works. It's just at the margin going to give them that resiliency and ability to defend against the sales world that no, like, for example, value. Okay. We know and understand that value is the pain trade of the world. And it goes at 10, 20-year lopsided, really winning, really losing. And yeah, it totally sucks right now. And it might be the worst idea ever. Should have just bought the Mag 7. But that doesn't matter because I already understand that process and how it works. So I'm going to stick through this thing anyways. I don't care what the Merrill Lynch guy says, right? So it's all about empowering investors through education. It is being very transparent because we think that's the only way, or one of the ways, to get people to not be crazy and, flip-flop and bounce around all over.
So for investors who are listening today, how would you say that they should think about the balance between simplicity and sophistication when they're building portfolios?
So I would say you want to be as simple as humanly possible, and you only add complexity if you start to really understand what you're doing. You don't. Most people do the opposite way. It sounds complex, therefore it must be high value add, but that's not actually the case in financial markets. That's just usually high fees and bad ideas. So if you just go back to basics, kind of like what Warren Buffett says, just go buy a Vanguard fund. Great. That's the simplest thing ever. Is that like the right answer? Not necessarily, but it's not going to get you in too much trouble. Right. And then only add complexity to the extent you actually understand, why are you adding complexity and what's the value add of that complexity? And if you can't answer that question easily, just avoid it and you'll prevent yourself from a lot of problems.
Complexity is definitely sort of the Wizard of Oz of our industry. Ooh,
big time.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, well, let's move on from our wiser investing part of the podcast to stronger living. So, Wes, you're not only an investor, you're also a hiker, and you've even completed the Leadville 100 Ultra Marathon. What do those experiences teach you about mindset and perseverance?
Well, the Leadville 100 taught me that I should never run 100 miles ever again because it was literally the most painful thing I've ever done in my life. It was almost like reaching Zen or Nirvana. It was like an enlightenment type of thing for me, so I highly recommend it that people do try it. But I mean, not just like running, whatever it is. I just think the ability to stick through something, be disciplined, follow a process, I think that's what life's all about in the end. Just having some sort of goal out there, whatever it happens to be. And the goal doesn't really matter. It's just about, sticking to a process, living the journey. Yeah, I mean, that's Leadville 100, that's the Marines, that's building a business, that's doing your homework in kindergarten. I mean, that's life, right? That's good marriage, all these things.
All right, well, tell us about some practices that you kind of rely on daily, weekly, that really sort of keep yourself sharp mentally, physically, and emotionally.
Sure. So, I mean, again, this is boring, standard thing like your mom would probably tell you. But, I always try to get like really good sleep because there's tons of research that, getting appropriate sleep and like making sure it's good sleep, it's just the foundation of everything. And so I used to be one of those people that'd be like, oh, let's sleep 3 hours and just grind it out. And then, we start to read evidence. You're like, that was stupid. I'm actually working harder and less efficient. So get good sleep no matter what, the best you can. And that just seems obvious after the fact, even though I didn't do that back in the day, but now I do. The other thing is just try to get daily exercise or do some sort of activity, right? Like don't just sit in front of the computer and stare at the wall all day. And again, it just helps with brain function. It helps with cortisol management. It just helps with life if you just stay active. Again, 101 things your mom would tell you. And then the last one is just good nutrition. So again, this is stupid. Like don't eat pizza and hamburgers and lollipops all day. I mean,
What?
Yeah, I mean, you can. Yeah, I mean, if you want to splurge every so often, I do that all the time. But like generally speaking, you want to try to keep good nutrition. And like, it's just amazing, in life, like get good sleep, try to be active, do some workouts, and just don't, eat like normal. Like just if you did those three things, you're going to be, it seems to me, like ahead of 99% of Americans for the most part. The rest is like, you don't have to do anything else to that. So those are kind of like the foundations of everything. And then I'm also, even though I work a lot, like I do, you can be efficient with work-life balance, right? Like sometimes just reality. Like, I'm in charge of my biz. I try to be present, try to be a good leader, which means you got to put a lot of time in and work hard. But you don't want to do that at the expense of like your family or your kids, right? So, and you can use excuses like, well, I got to commute 2 hours every day. Well, true. What about changing your structure? Like, I mean, not everyone could do this, but I live in Puerto Rico and I golf cart, 3 minutes to my kid's school. Why? Because, I could actually take my kids to school and be engaged with my family very efficiently and give them as much time as I can, even though I also got to deal with a crazy business and, 100% growth and hiring people all day long, right? So there's never an excuse to not have a work-life balance. It's just a matter of like building the conditions for success, because everything in the end, you can always make an excuse for, but if you have a long horizon, you can adapt, change, move to, fix the problem.
So obviously the theme in this interview has been discipline, and discipline does seem to be a connecting thread in your life. It's in the military, in the markets, in endurance sports. We've kind of touched upon this already, but I guess we should synthesize it. How do you actually define discipline and how do you cultivate it?
That's a good question. And you probably know like who David Goggins is. He talks about like callousing the mind. And I'm a big believer in that, right? Because I've seen it in my own life. Like when I was preparing for the Marines and in the Marines, I was pretty much crazy because I was insanely disciplined and I was training that toughness, like just grind it out. Don't listen to what your brain tells you to do to quit. And so I was really, really good at that. And then I got out of the service and, obviously I was probably more disciplined than most, but I joined the civilian world and you start to get soft over time. And you can recognize that because you're not exercising the ability to kind of not just react and like eat the donut when they give it to you type of problem, right? And so what I've done in my life is, it sounds crazy, but you kind of got to be a little bit masochistic where like, I'm like, I should do this stupid 100-mile Leadville run. Do I need to do that? Should I do that? Of course not. But I need to do something to regain. Like I gotta actually do things that are painful, so I'm a lot better at avoiding the donut next time. You see yourself, your life, you kind of fluctuate between like being hard and being soft, and I feel like it's just a muscle you have to exercise, unfortunately. And I don't know the definition of discipline, but I think it's just the ability. Like if you're familiar with like Kahneman's book, there's like he has System 1 brain, which is just animal instinct, just do whatever you want, like, see this, do that. And then system 2 is like your ability to kind of like ration out the decision. Like, is that actually a good idea? I feel like discipline is just anytime you're faced with a situation where you got a system 1, system 2 fight, system 2 has a little bit more muscle than system 1, right? It can kind of fight against that thing as best you can. It's never going to work perfectly, but I think that's generally speaking what discipline is to me.
You touched upon this earlier, but on the importance of sleep, and many call it the ultimate biohack. It's just getting enough sleep, and sleep helps so much with discipline as well. So,
huge. Exactly.
So on Invest Well, Be Well, we always explore the balance of performance and purpose. And so to kind of bring this together, what does investing well and living well mean to you personally?
I mean, it's actually a great question, because I spent my whole life trying to figure out how to get rich because I was broke my whole life. And now I'm at this stage. It's like, all right, I just have to get money because I'm tired of being broke and like worried about all these other problems in life. I got my kids, wife, I got to take care of them. And so I solved that problem finally. And I do not have an answer for what you're supposed to do once you get there. I'm still trying to personally figure that out, and I just don't know yet. It's part of my life journey, because again, I made a mistake of wasting my whole life and time, which was, you have to do that obviously, but I haven't really spent that much brain power on like, great, now that you made it, now you solved all these financial problems, what's next in life? What's the point? What's the purpose? So I honestly just don't know. That's something that I'm personally trying to figure out at the moment right now. So
we're trying to figure it out too. That's why we always ask the question.
Yeah. Yeah. When someone tells me, I talk to a lot of folks that are interested in talking to us, and they ask me, and I was like, you know what? I don't know what I'm supposed to do when I grow up. I'm the grown up now, but I actually don't know what I want to do when I grow up right now. Like, I'm trying to figure out what the next thing I'm supposed to do is, and I just don't know. I'm trying to figure that out as we speak. So.
Yeah. All right, well, Wes, thanks so much for coming on the show today. This has been such a great conversation. We have 2 final questions before we let you go. Where can advisors follow your work and continue learning from you? And if they want a small win today, what should they do right after listening to this podcast?
So I would say where can you find us? alphaarchitect.com. That's the easiest. Or on Twitter. I guess it's called X now. @AlphaArchitect is the easiest ones. And then as far as like a small win, honestly, I would just go out and do some exercise. I call them mini PTs, like go do 50 push-ups, do something, because it'll take your mind off whatever problems or stress you got at that moment, and you'll be clear-headed, have a little adrenaline boost, and you'll be ready to rock. So,
exercise snacks.
Snacks, exactly.
That's right.
Very helpful. I do it all the time when I get stressed out. I'm just like, I'm going to go do some push-ups or some pull-ups real quick. It's going crazy right now.
Well, Wes, I do have one more question. I just thought it's something I just heard. So, tell you the truth, I don't even know if you can tell me if you're allowed to, but I just heard this recently, and one of my best friends was in the Marines for years. He did boot camp at Camp Pendleton. I was out there a bunch of times. But I just heard the other day that if, like, you're at a dinner or something and you put some crayons on the table or a crayon on the table, they have to eat it. The Marine will eat it. Can you tell, is that true, or is that just a myth? Is it top secret?
It's top secret. But generally speaking, when presented with that situations, you're missing something. You first drag your knuckles as you walk to the table, and then you eat the crayons. That's Marines in a nutshell. Right? And this is typically other services, like, the knuckle dragging, like crayon eating service, because Marines are kind of like the dumb guys or whatever. So yeah, we get heckled a lot on that. It's either, hey, you want to eat a crayon, or do you, like, your knuckles are dirty, you've been dragging them all over the place. There's a lot of that kind of stuff.
I can't believe I've never heard of that in all these years. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah,
I can't believe my husband's a former Marine, and I've never heard of that. And I've put several crayons on the table. We got a kid, so
yeah.
Happened.
Do it tonight, Robin, at dinner. See what happens.
Yeah, I've never eaten a crayon, but Marines are known as crayon eaters because our IQ is usually half of that of normal people. So we get it.
Yeah. Well, Wes, thank you so much. I love what you're doing. I mean, to me, two key attributes of any good money manager is discipline and being different. And you guys do a great job of that. So thank you for your time today.
You got it. And Robin, tell your husband Semper Fi for me.
Will do.
All right. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Wes.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Bye. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening to Invest Well, Be Well. Let us know what you think. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe. This podcast is hosted by Rusty Vanneman and Robin Murray and produced by Garrett Crosby. Well, we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening to Invest Well, Be Well. And hey, if you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe.
If you have feedback, guest suggestions, or just want to connect, please visit my website, rustysbridge.com, or email me directly at rusty@rustysbridge.com. Until next time, invest well and be well. This episode of Invest Well, Be Well is brought to you by Bonrion Capital, led by my friend and colleague of nearly 10 years, Shana Sissel. Shana was named a top 20 wealth tech CEO in 2025, and it's no surprise. She's passionate, does the work, and knows asset managers, portfolio allocations, and alternatives like few others in the business. She's authentic, tough, and deeply cares about all her stakeholders, the kind of character you'd expect from the daughter of a police officer. If you want an investment manager who combines deep due diligence with innovative solutions and alternative investments, please check out Bonrion Capital at bonrioncapital.com.